Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, hey, hey. We're Sunday morning at Street Talk Radio, and I'm Jennifer Gigi Ferguson, candidate for United States Senator, coming at you this morning, live in the studio. Natasha's not here with us this morning. I'm asking everyone to keep Natasha and her family in prayer. Natasha lost her uncle of cancer this week, and our Kim Keel that was in here last week, it was her father. So we're asking you to hold them up in prayer this morning. Hold the entire family up. It's always difficult to lose a loved one. And talking about loved ones, I have to talk about this morning what's going on in this country. I'm having serious issues. People are not born to hate. People are not born racist. People are not born evil for the most part. There are a few that genetically are born that have mental health issues. But for the most part, when we're born with a clean slate. And that clean slate ends up getting information put on it by what happens in our lives. That information either comes love, it comes hate, but it has to be put there from the environment, which is why they talk about nature versus nurture. And it's really not nature versus nurture, it's nature and nurture. It's a combination of both of them. So I've been really, really quiet with what's going on at the borders. And I've been quiet because I've been an activist against child sex trafficking. I've been a therapist working with families in domestic violence. I've worked with our soldiers with PTSD. So I have a lot of education and a chemical dependency counselor. So I have a lot of education. I have a lot of boots on the ground. I have a lot of experience. And that's also over 20 years volunteering with Children's Services on a Child Protective Team, where we met twice a month for about 2-3 hours on 2 cases where we heard what was being presented, and our teams had to make decisions on what this family needed in order to have a better life for these children, to be able to get their children back. And so this week, seeing these children ripped out of their mother's arms, they are what the law says. If they are coming from a country where it is not safe for them, they can come to our border and ask for asylum. That's law. Women are coming to the border, and it could be women and men, but they're coming to the border with their babies. So they are following the law. Yet, their babies are being ripped out of their arms and separated from them. Now, you can sit back and you can try to justify and say the law says if a mother is in prison or the parents are in prison, the children can't be there. Okay, then don't make it a prison. Because a detention center is supposed to be where they're detained and where they're held. There should be a difference between prison and detention center. And if they're being charged with a misdemeanor Why are they in cages and being treated like criminals when they came to the border? Why have their babies been snatched away from them? And then the babies have been moved to different states. The mothers have been moved to different states. And there's been no record. So here's an issue that I'm having with this. One, America now is number one in child sex trafficking. Washington State is number one in the world for child sex trafficking. We were number two. You've heard me say that. We have rich men going to third world countries, and they started being prosecuted for having sex with minors. Because it was, you're leaving this country to go to another country to have sex with minors. So when I heard they were taking the children from the mothers and they were moving, separating them even by states, that was one of the first things that came to my mind. Are they trafficking these babies? Are they trafficking these children? Now, they have now moved some of the mothers down to the detention center in Tacoma. I was down the first night that Native Americans and others were down there. We were marching, making all types of noise, letting the mothers know, we're here, we know you're there, and we're with you. You're not alone. These women are coming for asylum, and they're being traumatized. Now, those who came or are coming over the border illegally, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones right now that came to the border asking for asylum. I'm hot. I'm hot. And then I've heard that my fears are now justified, that some of these children are being trafficked. So now these rich people who used to go to third world countries no longer have to go to third world countries. They can do what they want to do right here in the United States. And the man who is in charge of America, because we're not a free world. The man in charge of America has given them basically permission by his actions to do this. Now, I need your feedback this morning, because I'm in here. Natasha's not here. And the phone number here is 253-581-0324. We need to have a conversation about this, because I don't understand why there's not a larger outrage on these babies. When I said babies are born with a clean slate, you can't see my hands, but the way our brain works, our brain is electrical, and the neurotransmitters and the synapse in the brain are electrical currents, and they snap across. The electrical currents go across. So imagine, or even pinch yourself on your hand. if you pinch yourself on the hand, you feel it because your brain recognizes the pinch. If you feel it right away, that means your synapse and your synapse are, the electrical currents are working right. The electrical part is going where it needs to go. The neurotransmitters are more chemical. Our brain is not fully developed until we are about mid-20s. So anything that happens prior to the mid-20s affects the brain and how the brain works. Understand, alcohol affects the brain. Drugs affects the brain. Trauma affects the brain. All of these three things alter how the electrical system works in the brain, and it affects the chemical imbalance of the brain. So now let's imagine, because I've heard the youngest child taken is 23 months old. In all of my volunteer work, the youngest child I know to be sexually abused was 24 months old. Yes, 2 years old is the youngest child I've heard of being sexually abused. So you see, this is really impacting me. And if people out there know what I know, I don't understand why it's not so much more outrage at this versus everyone standing behind this man, justifying what he's doing. The Republicans I know here in the 28th LD in Pierce County, I don't understand. This is not my 30 plus years in UP. We never talked politics, but we did talk morals and values. I never knew what, if you were GOP or DNC, you never knew where I stood. But our morals and our values were closely aligned on a lot of areas. So I don't understand why we're not hearing more out of you. I don't understand why we're not hearing more from the Democrats who say they're a party of the people. These babies. Someone was interviewing me the other night down by the detention center, and I had to come off. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is really getting to me. I need to cut this feed. Help me to understand. Help me to understand why there's not a moral outrage about this. Now, we're able to do billions of dollars to overthrow other countries and put in the leadership we want, to fight for their oil, to fight for whatever it is those countries have, and turn those countries into a democracy. Yet America is destroying itself from within. And those that are out there that don't vote, you're basically saying it's okay. Those that are out there that vote blue no matter who, or red, I don't know what goes with that, but you're just going straight down party line, but you really don't know how those people vote. You know what they tell you. And typically is blue no matter who that just votes straight party line and they don't know what's going on. And this is for the most part. Now, that's as far as the party goes. And those that are involved in the party. As a matter of fact, the Democratic Party says when we have an incumbent, we're going to keep that incumbent in office by any means necessary. I've been told that here in Tacoma since 2012. It doesn't matter what they do, we're still going to keep them in office if we have them in office. Excuse me? Unless they do something too bad. What's too bad? So I'm going to leave that, and now I'm going to go to what I've seen here with the Republican Party, to where you get up and lie. There was an elected official that lied about his military here in Pierce County. He was forced by the Republican Party to step down. I understand the woman that's running for United States Senate, that's a Republican, used to be chair of the Republican Party for Washington State. She was asked to step down because of the way she spoke or something. But the Republican Party here has asked people to step down. They have used their PCOs to vote in someone else to take those positions. So PCOs have a lot of power, people. And a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know this. But PCOs, which they have a hard time getting and keeping and doing their job, actually have a lot of control over decisions made in the parties. So I need to understand why the Republicans here in Washington, why you're not saying something to the Republicans in D.C. who are sitting back and just letting this man do what he wants. And though they may not like it, they're keeping their mouths shut. They're letting it happen. Why? Is he in reality doing what you really want him to do? Because silence is consent. Again, this is Gigi. I'm at 253-581-0324. Challenge me. Help me to understand. Because I'm angry. I'm angry at the atrocities going on in our country, and people are not getting involved. They're not speaking up. They're not crying out. And people, as long as you stay quiet and as long as you vote ignorantly, things are going to continue to get worse. They are not going to get better. How do I know? History. People ask me, why are you running for U.S. Senator? Okay, let me tell you. The same fight that my grandmother was fighting, the same fight that my cousins went to jail for, the same fight with me being bussed into white schools because they did not want to give education, good books, new books, to the black students or the poor population. And I say black, brown, and poor white kids. I'm putting us all in the same group because that who has been under attack for years. But people don't talk about poor white. They just talk about the black or the brown. Okay, back then, we were fighting for the rights of black people. Today, those same issues are now being fought for the 98%. So when I say silence means it's okay with you, when I say if you're voting ignorantly, vote blue no matter who, or vote red, however they say it, that's what I'm talking about. The Constitution was not written for America to be a democracy. If I'm not mistaken, Adams specifically said, if it's either Adams or Jefferson, said that if we move towards a democracy, we would end up with the class system we're headed back towards. America is a republic through the Constitution. And I also want to say, there's Facebook posts that's going live asking for people to sign on for, is it the 26th Amendment? For us to have a constitutional convention? Are you crazy? With this administration, you want to have a constitutional convention? There are no rules for a constitutional convention. None. So if you think the current Constitution has issues, can you imagine what this administration will do if they obtain the right to have a constitutional convention? And I'm sorry, that's Democrat or Republican right now. Because as far as I'm concerned, in Washington, D.C., they're both the same. They're both taking money from the same fat cats. They're both taking money from the same lobbyists. And that's the reason nothing gets done. Because they're paid not to let anything get done. They're slaves to their parties. They are slaves to the corporations who donate money to their campaigns, which is really not to their campaigns, because in Washington, D.C., they must spend 60% of their day raising money, I know, for the Democratic Party. I'm sorry. According to Spiva, their attorney in the lawsuit against Bernie Sanders, there is no such thing as a Democrat. They are the DNC. They only ask people to vote Democrat. So if there's no such thing as a Democrat, how can you ask people to vote Democrat? Okay? See, I think, I read, I research. That doesn't make sense. If there's no such thing as a Democrat, how do you vote Democrat? Yet, People will do whatever they need to for the party. What about the people? What about the hungry? What about the enslaved with the private prisons? All the jobs, people are not going overseas. A lot of those labor jobs that would be union jobs are in our prison system. And they're using the Second Amendment, 13th Amendment, I apologize, the 13th Amendment, which says slavery has been abolished except if you've been convicted of a crime. I've said this before. So if slavery is abolished unless you've been convicted of a crime, does that mean when you've been convicted of a crime, you're now back a slave again? Because that's exactly what they do. They don't allow you to get a job. Washington has reestablished, so once people are off of probation and are off of parole, they can now register to vote. But I was just talking with someone the other day, and they won't let them off of probation or parole until they pay their fines. Really? And that's here in Washington State. So don't think because we're in Washington State, we're protected. Because we're not. It's just an undercurrent. And a lot of the undercurrents are really coming from being under and moving to the top. Maybe we're not getting phone calls on this morning because you're hearing what I'm saying, and maybe like when I'm sitting, it's sinking in. This is Jennifer Gigi Ferguson, candidate for United States Senate on Street Talk Radio, telling you thank you and have a great weekend. Think about what I've said, and blessings to you.